must be Flo.
Hi, Michael. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Come on, let's go.
Thank you.
Flo McEwan is a photographer and local historian, and she's agreed to take me out into the Thames estuary on a quest for those remnants.
Flo, I'm a Londoner, and yet I don't really know the Thames estuary. It's rather majestic, isn't it?
It's a magical place, I think, and it played a really important part during the war because the enemy aircraft would use the River Thames as a navigational aid to bring the aircraft into the centre of London where they would drop their bombs.
On a moonlit night, even though London would be blacked out, the Thames estuary would shine clearly.
It would be glistening, and there was a lot of reliance on the waterways to serve our people, to bring supplies, and therefore it was of utmost importance that somehow this was protected. And this was the point where Churchill went to the Admiralty and tasked them with finding a solution which would protect our shores from the enemy aircraft. And this is what we have.
Seven steel sea forts loom 90 feet above the seabed at the entrance to the Thames estuary.
Flo, I thought I knew my country, but I've never set eyes on these things before. They are absolutely enormous. They are really impressive structures, aren't they?
They are just beautiful.
When were they constructed?
So these forts were actually built in 1941 over to 1942, and they were built on land in Gravesend in Kent, and they were towed out on steam tugs. And they were positioned in exactly the right place, and they line up beautifully. It's an incredible feat of engineering to do this. And could you imagine what it would have been like to have been on board as that fort was sunk into the seabed? It was quite a sight, I would imagine.
They were brought out with the men on board already.
Absolutely. You'd have to be a very brave man to be on board that day, but that's what they did.
Extraordinary.
Isn't it just?
Over 10 miles out at sea, warships that have never steamed an inch keep open the vital approaches to the port of London.
Who was on board?
They would have been a good 100 servicemen on board, and they would have had ship's doctors, they would have had cooks, medics, they would have had a full contingent to support them whilst they were out here on their service.
How do you think conditions were?
It would have been a difficult time, I think. I mean, you're in a very remote place. You're away from your loved ones, but you've also got these horrible weather conditions. But they were well fed, and they also had a daily supply of rum as well to keep them going.
Tell me what armaments they would have had.
We have a control tower, we have a Bofors tower, and we have 4 gun towers, which would have had the 3.7-inch guns on the roof as well. And there's a searchlight tower, which would have had the light shining into the sky, looking for the enemy aircraft. And these magnificent heroes of the war shot down 22 enemy aircraft and 30 doodlebugs. So they've served their purpose very, very well, for sure.
What became of the towers after the war?
They were decommissioned, which would have been around about the mid-50s, 1955, and left in the estuary to this day.
I'm in awe of the bravery of the men who lived in these isolated structures, repelling the enemy from the middle of the Thames estuary.
On this journey, I've considered the sea as a place for holidays, as an inspiration for writers, as a deadly threat to seamen, as a means for foreign invasion. And today, I see it just for its beauty under this extraordinary autumnal sky of whites and blues and dark greys.